a few years ago, I would say, not just recently, but every year at the Market America conventions, I have the chance to get to know her. She's such a wonderful person, and she's got such a wealth of information that I thought that perhaps, we, in the Asia Pacific region, can really benefit from learning from somebody so well qualified. And again, when she came 2 years ago to Singapore, and I had a little bit more time to spend with her, traveling to Thailand as well, going up all that journey to Hua Hin, I was just tapping her brains, and I was looking forward to the time when she would be sharing with us in Singapore and the Asia Pacific region. And this is exactly what it is, a dream come true. The only difference is that we don't see you in person, but it's on Zoom, which is better than nothing. So just grateful that we have this chance. So a little bit of background: registered dietitian, clinical nutritionist. And this is something that Sharon has been doing for the past 44 years. How qualified is she? And she's still doing that today, right? Integrative nutritionist and functional medicine, and she specializes in inflammation and autoimmune. So today we're also going to have a little story about an autoimmune health challenge as well. And if you look at her background, she's the founder of this healing center called Nutrition Dynamics Health and Healing Center. She's also a clinical instructor at SUNY Buffalo, adjunct professor of Buffalo State College, special studies faculty. I understand that this is a very prestigious institution, Chautauqua Institution, and this is an amazing place that if you get to speak at this institution, you must be really very, very good. And that's where our speaker category falls into. She's a spokesperson for ADA, American Menopause Foundation. So women, we have any problems, she is somebody who perhaps can advise us and give us recommendations, on a private basis sometime at some point in time. Radio talk show. So we are talking to a radio personality, and she's also featured in media locally and nationally. And I want to tell you that she is an international speaker. She has gone around the world. I know she's spoken at all the product symposiums in America. She also trains nutrimatics consultants. Now, what is a nutrimatics consultant? Is somebody who specializes in health and nutrition, but belong to the health and healthcare professional category in Market America. So she has trained in Australia. That's why the Australians just simply love her. And now we can say you have trained extensively in Singapore as well. So Malaysia, wait for your turn. She'll be there in person someday as well, as she will be in Singapore in the future too. So in UK as well, I remember, and then okay, she has taught. So without spending too much time, we have a lot of things to cover today, lots of stories to share. So please listen up, have your isotonic drink next to you, and let's isotonics, right? And let's listen up to our very, very qualified speaker and a wonderful, wonderful trainer. So with that, Sharon,
Thank you.
overall to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate that, Leanne. Hi, everyone. I am so happy to be able to be here with you tonight. We'll be talking a lot about, oh, wait a minute, we've got the wrong presentation. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Can you give us 5 minutes while we look
That's
this
okay.
up?
I will talk to the audience. That's all right.
Please
Hi,
do.
everyone. Yes, okay. I'm back here again. I just thought maybe I like to highlight that. Are you ready? The chat group is to say hello, but just remember that Sharon doesn't have time to look at it till at some point in time later. But the Q&A is where if you have a question, you can ask the question there. But please try and avoid asking questions asking for recommendations of different. Oh, sorry. Different recommendations for a different health challenge. With that, thank you so much.
I appreciate that. We had a crash of the computer about 2 hours ago, and my presentation disappeared. So
Oh,
you
wow.
all hear me? Leanne, do you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. So I apologize for that. So we're going to get started by let me first covering what we're going to train on tonight. We have to really review what are free radicals, how they.
Oh, we can't
And then
hear
we're
you
really
now.
going to explore some. You
You went,
can't hear me now?
yes, you went in and out. Sorry.
Okay, I'm moving this closer. Is that any better?
Yes, we can hear you. It was just for that moment, I think.
Okay, yeah, we're having a major storm here, so I don't know if it's affecting our internet, but we'll
Perhaps.
keep rolling ahead. All right, so we'll be looking at the most exquisite nutrients in the world, and these are.
Sorry, Sharon, can't hear you.
Sorry, Sharon, can't hear
Can't
you.
hear
You
you.
still can't hear me.
You went
Okay,
in and out
hold.
again.
There's something I don't know what's going on here. Give me a sec.
Sure, it
I
happened.
had my speakers turned all the way up. Now I've turned them back down.
No, I
Is
think
that
it was like a lapse of it was a technical something. It wasn't just your voice. So try again.
hmm? Okay. So do you think that the do you are you hearing me well now?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. So let me try to get rid of this, and then I'm with you. All right, so first of all, when we talk about oxidant stress, we're really referring to free radicals and the way they damage everything that they come in touch with. So most of us are thinking that they're only addressing organic structures like our bodies. But in fact, these ubiquitous, dangerous little terrorists that are all over the environment are something that we cannot taste or touch. We don't smell them. Unless you're smelling a rancid fat, most of the time you would not know where the free radicals are when you bump into them. And literally everything they touch, every single thing, from an old metal car to this gentleman's face that's been weathered by the sun, to even an apple that you might just cut and open up. Everything that is touched by free radicals in the environment will be destroyed. Free radicals will nick and pit and scratch and wear away the surfaces. And those surfaces could be external, or in our bodies, could be the inner linings of our arteries, the joints. They could be anything they touch. So we really need to get almost the PhD in where free radicals are and what they do to our health. And so I'm going to start with just the easiest explanation because it's one that you can use when you're trying to explain this to your relatives, to your friends, because nobody really understands oxidation. And yet it's such a simple concept, it's really important to grasp. If you were to take an apple and cut it in the air and hold both sides open, within 10-15 minutes, it would start browning. And if you left those two open sides all day long, by the end of the day, you could pick up one half of the apple, holding it by the skin, and literally push your finger all the way to the outer edge of the skin. It will be weeping, it will be wet, because the free radicals that are on the surface, nicking and pitting and scratching, will eat their way all the way through. They won't stop until there's nothing left. And the same is true if you left an old metal car or an old metal bicycle outside. Free radicals in the environment would eat right through. We'd see a rust hole. And that's the exact same browning reaction. It doesn't matter where it is. If it's on someone's face, it might be an age spot, a brown spot, or fine lines and wrinkles. But the nicking, pitting, and scratching goes on and on. Now, how would we stop? In the old metal car and bike, we could spray Rust-Oleum. For this man's face, before it reached the level of wrinkles that he's experienced, we could have put antioxidants on his skin. We could have used vitamin C and some of the things we'll be talking about um, internally, actually externally, to do the same job. But let's understand how vitamin C works, because that's the one I brought up. If we had taken half that apple and before it started to brown, we squeezed a fresh lemon over it. You could then set that half out while the other one was browning. And 15 minutes, 2 hours, 6 hours later, it's still creamy white, sort of yellow white, because there's something in the lemon juice that interacts with the free radicals of oxygen and others that are in the air and takes them out before they take out the surface of that apple. And that something is vitamin C. It's preventing the oxidative attack. It is an antioxidant. So while this sounds like such a complicated subject matter, it just means anything that prevents free radical damage and oxidative attack is an antioxidant. And now you have it and you can explain it to others. When we talk about what free radicals are, it's a very simple explanation is that all atoms have rings of electrons floating around. And a free radical occurs when one of the electrons spins off, so that we now are missing one. And that atom is actually unstable, highly reactive. It's become what we call that terrorist, seeking a mate from nature. In its unbalanced and reactive state, it will grab an electron. So here was a case where the electron was missing here, and it stole it from a neighboring atom in order to complete its shell. They will steal from stable, very healthy cells and membranes, the proteins of your body, and they will cause chain reactions. So here's what a healthy cell might look like with one free radical in its midst. And on time release photography, look what happens as every single free radical occurs. All of these healthy cells are now radicalized. All of them are in danger. None of them perform well. So before you assume that we have to remove every free radical, you need to understand that they do serve a purpose in the body. They help us generate energy. They're part of our metabolic processes, and they help us fight infections. But when we have too many of them, they will attack healthy cells. It will cause those cells to age and function abnormally, and it will truly injure the cell, making it incredibly vulnerable to infections and all types of degenerative diseases we will see. So this is what it looks like internally when that cell's been damaged, when a free radical has penetrated into its core, right through the outside cell membrane and destroyed it. And this will cause either cell injury or cell death. And we're going to look at all the different ways it affects our body from our immune perspective to our cardiovascular health. There's really nothing that is safe when free radicals are roaming around in the body. They can produce several different kinds of cancers, a wide variety of degenerative diseases, and they fully affect the way our body functions. They don't look the same and they don't act the same. They force an accelerated aging. So here's some examples of free radicals, and you don't have to memorize them. Just understand that the first 5 are actually oxygen radicals, variations on the oxygen, the wonderful oxygen that we breathe, that we need for life, can become slightly deranged. And when it does, it's not as healthy for us. So one of the worst ones is the ones that come from oxidized fat. And this may be something that's prevalent in your body if you eat fried foods. So many people will say to me, well, I just have a donut occasionally. I only have sweet and sour chicken or sweet and sour pork on a rare occasion. I hardly ever eat wings. These are not that much a part of my diet. But the problem is, when we're eating these foods, there's really not a way to stop the reaction and to protect ourselves. The very worst of them all are fats. And we will look at that when we're looking at all the rest of the free radicals that are in the environment. I just want you to understand that your brain and your eyes are have a huge percentage of fat. And if you have radicalized peroxides or lipid peroxides floating around, they will damage the retina. They will damage your brain. They will damage thinking and memory and the way you emote. They will damage and make you anxious. They are actually going to destroy body parts. So we have to really address those. Nitrogen has free radicals, sulfur has free radicals, carbon has free radicals. There's all different kinds of free radicals. One of the worst in the world are the peroxynitrites, and unfortunately, it's very, very hard to take them out. So this is just a quick summary of some of those oxygen-free radicals, the superoxide and hydroxyl and peroxide radicals, and look at the damage they do to DNA and collagen, to our metabolic pathways, even to generalized cell activity. And when this takes place, they can create cancers, adjust the elasticity of the skin, destroy the collagen, causing it to wrinkle and age, dehydrate the skin, causing skin cancers if they are penetrating the nucleus of the cells and changing those cell structures. They can also affect neurological function, and Parkinson's is only one example of peroxide damage. But we'll take a look at all the different things we can do to really protect ourselves from them. So, where do they come from? First of all, your own metabolic pathways make the largest amount of free radicals in your body, as do the aging and the natural death of cells. So, as cells age, they become dysfunctional and they die off. And they accumulate as blood sludge and other things. They're in our body. But that's not the real worst of them all. The worst of them all are the ones we're going to talk about next. So, while I will tell you when we talk about mood late this morning that I really do want you to get some sun and make some vitamin D, I also want you to understand that for the body parts that are most susceptible to aging, which would be your face and your hands, it's probably a good idea to kind of miss out on that sunshine vitamin and at least cover the face and your exposed body parts with sunscreen during the hottest part of the day. Um, because if you do get constant exposure to the UVB rays, they can enter the skin. They can move through the cell membrane, get to the nucleus, which is the genius, the DNA of the cell, and mutate it, causing skin cancers. We all know that. That's why sometimes when I was in Singapore, I'd see people with parasols or big hats. It is a good idea to cover the face, but still to leave at least one body part exposed, maybe for 15 minutes. A hand today, a hand tomorrow, a foot the next day, just to be able to make vitamin D while minimizing UVB rays. Pollutants from gasoline, from exhaust fumes, if you happen to be walking by where cars are speeding by, you will breathe them, and they are loaded with free radicals. The ozone layer is depleted. So we have many, many more rays of the sun coming through, and ozone itself is a free radical. When we walk through cigarette smoke, some of us think that cigarettes are only dangerous because of the addictive nicotine. But in fact, cigarettes are bombs of free radicals. So we really have to be very careful, even for the people that are not smoking themselves. Walking through the cigarette smoke means you expose yourself to free radicals. Ionizing radiation occurs when we get close to the sun. So those of you who also when you get x-rays, but when I fly, when you take a flight and you're up higher in the atmosphere, closer to the sun, in the cabin of that plane, there's a lot more free radicals than there are down on the ground. So you want to be thinking about taking antioxidants when you're on the plane in order to minimize some of the free radicals that you're exposed to. When you eat barbecued and blackened or charred food, you're getting free radicals that you probably could do without. So if you do decide to barbecue, do not eat anything that's blackened. Cut off the charred pieces and don't cook them until they're that well done. Please watch out for pesticides. Pesticides. So not every single thing you put in your mouth probably is organic, but aim for mostly organic foods that are pesticide free. When water is not filtered, it can have halogens like chlorine or fluoride. And those are also highly reactive and dangerous. So most of you probably filter your water. And Singapore, I think, has water that is cleaner than the United States, just in general. I'll verify that with Leanne and Felicia as I get off. As maybe when we do our Q&A, you guys can spot me on that. But I know that you're collecting water, and it seems like you're reusing it and cleaning it. So yours is probably a little safer than what I'm exposed to. So when you're visiting the United States, make sure you get filtered water. Heavy metals are also dangerous. Excessive alcohol consumption is something I want to bring up for just a sec. And that's because some of us think if some is good, more is better. Please understand that when you consume more than 2 small glasses of wine, there's a 6-fold increase in breast cancer and many other cancers. You really want to have alcohol in very small quantities. Anytime you take chemotherapy or use pharmaceuticals, those have to be metabolized by your body. They do have free radicals as part of their exposure. Fried food is something I said I was going to talk about. And let me just mention this for a minute, because many of us like spring rolls, egg rolls. There's many things that we'll eat periodically or frequently that come out of a deep fat fryer. And I just would like to engage your imagination for a minute to think about the fact that when they put a solid fat into the deep fat fryer, it'll go in there and it'll heat up. And then beginning in the morning, they'll start cooking food. Well, it doesn't take a far reaching genius to realize that if a tiny piece of whatever they put in the fryer, in the basket, while lifting it out, broke off, that little piece would continue cooking in that hot oil all day, all afternoon for the lunch crowd, all evening for the supper crowd, late at night for the bar crowd, and then again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. There are restaurants that only change the cooking oil in their deep fat fryer once in 2 or 3 weeks. So for 2 to 3 weeks, noxious chemicals that have accumulated because of that fat cooking past its smoke point and the burned and charred food that was overcooked in it will be polluting every single person that eats that food. So I would urge you, stir fry your foods like most of you do in a wok, eat healthy, eat clean, and really minimize that deep fried food as much as you can. And then the final one on here, since this looks like a very bad list of bad stuff, I don't want you to misconstrue and think that exercise is one of those bad things. Exercise does produce free radicals. But if we take enough antioxidants, things like coenzyme Q10, other really healthy antioxidants like astaxanthin, we can mitigate the effects of the exercise produced free radicals. So do not use that as an excuse not to do it. And as part of metabolic pathways, we've already said that they will produce free radicals. Well, we have to eat to fuel our bodies. And we're just going to let that one pass and kind of cover our bases with a healthy diet all day long. This is what it looks like as a pictorial when we summarize what we just saw with UV light and smoking, the metabolism of fuels in food, air pollutants, inflammatory processes, as well as ionizing radiation from X-rays and flights. And here is a quote that is really important for you to know. Each nucleus in every single cell of your body is estimated to sustain over 10,000 hits from oxidant-free radicals every single day. That's not my information. That's Bruce Ames' information. He's the senior research scientist at Berkeley. He is a genius. He is one of the most prolific researchers and scientists that study free radicals. So it's really critically important that we pay attention to this, because if we're going to be hit by all of these oxidants all day long, then we have to be conscious to stay 10 steps ahead and really take a proactive role in our own health. Build a wall around our bodies. Because here's what happens. Excessive free radicals that are being generated without enough antioxidants that are useful and without acting timely, quickly, will create lots of oxidant damage, and that will affect our proteins, our cells, the cell membranes, as well as the actual DNA of the cells. the, the genius of our bodies, so that when the cells replicate and they turn over and make new cells, they will be making damaged cells, cells that are deranged, that do not function properly to protect us, to support us, to regenerate the healthy body. And so this damage has been associated with chronic degenerative and inflammatory diseases that you don't want. Diseases like allergies and Alzheimer's, arthritis, asthma, arteriosclerosis, cancers of every type, cataracts in the eyes, chronic fatigue, Crohn's, diabetes, fibromyalgia, gum disease, IBS, lupus, macular degeneration, MS, Parkinson's disease, psoriasis, stroke, colitis, and on and on and on. Virtually every single degenerative disease is likely associated with immune incompetence and inflammatory processes run awry because free radicals were not addressed in a timely fashion with sufficient antioxidants. So here's how they work. I've already shown you an example of how they would nick and pit and scratch that apple and eat all the way through. Well, they will nick and pit and scratch your arterial lining. And when they do, sticky cholesterol that is oxidized, because they will cause that LDL, lousy cholesterol, to get very sticky, it will stick on the nicked areas of the arteries and stick like glue. And then as fibrinogen, which is the clotting factors, and calcium float by, they adhere to the sticky cholesterol and they make plaque. That triggers foam cell formation. And we did talk about that a little bit last night. It will pit the cartilage within the joints. Free radicals literally wear that cartilage right out. So you might think that running wore it out, but there are healthy runners that run until they're 80 and 90. And if you read any magazine like Runner's World, they'll tell you that they're teaching runners to use antioxidants to repair the cartilage as they go so that they don't let it wear away. Free radicals will impair the immune and detox systems and destroy the greatest antioxidant of all, the one your body produces naturally, and that is called glutathione. I don't know if you realize it, but glutathione is stronger than any antioxidant that we will talk about tonight. It is the granddaddy, the most super antioxidant in the world, and you are born with the capacity to make it. But free radicals in your environment, free radicals that you eat and drink and breathe, will destroy the body's capacity to actually create that glutathione. A very dear friend of mine named Deidre Mason has this joke. She says that every antioxidant on the face of the earth wishes it could grow up to be glutathione. And I tend to agree with her. It is the best of the best. So we need to secure our immune and detox systems and actually prevent them from being destroyed by free radicals. They also create vulnerability to infection. They can move through the eye and impair the brain and retinal functions. And they interfere with gene expression, predisposing us to all kinds of genetic deviations. So let's just quickly look at what we were talking about with free radicals and how they end up creating and supporting cardiovascular disease. We all know that there are cholesterol carriers that either are depositing cholesterol along the arterial lining or removing it from that arterial lining. So when we're talking about the good ones, the heart healthy ones, those are the healthy HDL. And when we're talking about the bad guys that are like a dump truck dropping sticky cholesterol on the arterial lining, those are the LDLs or lousy ones. So LDL cholesterol is always going to be floating in your arteries, and it is easily oxidized when it comes in contact with the free radical. So our job is to make sure that that does not happen. And the way we do it is by adding enough antioxidants to combine with it to prevent foam cells from forming and having sticky cholesterol in the lining. So let's take a look how that works. Here's a healthy blood vessel from a newborn, let's say. And here is the 5-year-old, 10-year-old, or 15-year-old that has been accumulating cholesterol, calcium, and fibrinogen as plaque. And if it moves into the intima, we're going to be calling that a foam cell, because it forms right along the wall. If it keeps going, eventually there'll be almost no space for the blood to get through. And depending on where that almost blocked artery is, when the blockage occurs, we lose the functionality of the tissues. So if this blocking or blocked vessel is in your carotids feeding your brain, then it's a cerebral vascular accident, which is a stroke. If it's in the very, very tiny vessels, I'm pointing to my hand because I want you to take a look at your hand. Do you see that small blue vein, all those little veins in your hand? Your heart is about the size of your fist, pumping on the left side of your body. And it's fed by vessels. Some of them are very, very tiny, like the vessels you see in your hand. If any of the vessels that are in your heart get clogged up like this, then we have a heart attack. That heart muscle dies. If the vessels that are feeding your toes get clogged up with that, we lose functionality of our toes. We don't have blood flow to the toes. It's what happens for diabetics when they lose their toes, or their feet get cut off, their knees get cut off because they don't have circulation. And their circulation they have is impacted by cardiovascular disease, which is this type of reaction. So that's what a foam cell looks like if we were to actually open it up and take a quick peek. So I'd like you to see now how the antioxidants work. First thing you need to know is that the antioxidant systems that we have on board are completely designed to support our growth and development, our immunity and full survival as a species, as an individual and as a collective species, our physical and mental performance, and our capacity for fitness, as well as all of the cell signaling and regulatory functions. And so when our antioxidant systems engage, it is either to prevent a reactive species from being formed at all, or to remove them before they can damage the components of the cell. Now, believe it or not, plants make these antioxidants and do the very same thing to protect themselves. When resveratrol is growing on the outside of an organic grape, it looks like a white crust. And what that is doing is it's an antioxidant to protect from sun damage for the grape itself. So different plants and different species all will create antioxidant protection the same way we do. But we end up needing, because of our very polluted and toxic environment and all of the things that we bump into that we spoke about last night, we have a higher need for antioxidants than the ones we were born with and the ones that we can generate. So we have to take them into our bodies as opposed to just assume that we'll make enough. And some of them we can't make, and we'll look at that. So how are they going to help? They silence free radicals by donating electrons to molecules that are unstable or reactive. We call that scavenging and neutralizing. They react with the free radical, so that free radical will not react with the body, just like vitamin C reacted with the oxygen free radicals in the air and took them out before they took out the surface of the newly cut apple that we sprayed with a little bit of lemon juice. That antioxidant reacted with free radicals so it wouldn't permanently destroy and disfigure the surface of the apple. They prevent internal rusting, oxidative stress. So let's take a look how that works. Imagine we have an oxygen molecule with 4 sets of paired electrons naturally. If there's one that is unpaired because it's currently a free radical, and we do not want it to destroy our body, we can use an antioxidant to donate an electron to it. So here's a healthy antioxidant loaded with extra electrons, and it just passes it right off. I like to call it spitting. It spits one up right to the ring and naturally silences that free radical. Now, some of these antioxidants are better spitters than others. So, vitamin E, for example, will spit exactly one. It lands on the ring, it silences and neutralizes the free radical. It's no longer a free radical, it's a functional atom. And that process of vitamin E donating, unfortunately, is short lived because once vitamin E donates the single election it has to give, it poops out and dies. Luckily for vitamin E, vitamin C is always nearby, and vitamin C can donate 2 electrons. So it will spit its 2 electrons both to vitamin E and rehab the vitamin E so it can continue spitting. We call this the electron transport chain. We'll take a look at it in a little bit. But just understand that all the major antioxidants work together, they're not separate. And all of them are restoring the functionality of each and every one that is less aggressive in spitting. So, major spitters would be something like OPC. It can spit 50 times the amount of electrons than vitamin E can, and almost 20 to 30 times more than vitamin C can. So, it will be close to them. When they poop out, it'll keep regenerating them, and they will regenerate the next. They move them from one to the next, silencing the free radical at the last place. That's how they work. Now imagine that they also are in different body parts. So if we're looking at the structure of the cell, we have a fatty bilayer. 2 little layers are in the cell membrane, and they are made of lipids or fats, as is the actual membrane. But in the center of the cell is a watery structure that we call the cytoplasm. And different antioxidants are going to be more functional in different places. So, for example, water soluble antioxidants will react with the oxidants that might be floating around in the middle of the cell, the cytoplasm. And fat soluble antioxidants will protect the outer layers, that lipid layer, and those would be beta carotene or coenzyme Q10 or vitamin E. And our system is very complex. Our antioxidants can work in independent ways or work together synergistically. Different body parts will have different antioxidants working more usefully for us. And so in the eye, we're going to rely on beta carotene, lutein, and zeaxanthin. When we're trying to preserve breast and prostate tissue, we're going to be relying on lycopenes, flavonoids for our heart, and proanthocyanidins for our urinary tract. Since our body needs all kinds of antioxidants, we need a variety of nutrients from our diet to actually supply these antioxidants. And if we're not getting enough from the diet, then we should be thinking about taking supplements. Here's just a great little study talking about the importance of a diet rich in antioxidants and how they can help preserve our health and prevent heart attack risk. So this was a study in which they looked at 30,000 women who were free of heart disease. And they examined the amount of antioxidants in their diets by looking at the amount of fruit and vegetables they ate. And what they discovered is that the women who ate 6 and more servings of fruit and vegetables a day had a 20% less risk of cardiovascular disease over a 10-year period. That is huge. And it really speaks to why we have to be focused on this. So before we look at it, supplements and antioxidants, let's look at the antioxidants that we have the broadest choices of from fruit and vegetables. No matter where you live, we can find them. The best way to look for the most potent antioxidants is to go for the colors, because antioxidants end up as pigments in the food. So the way I like to think about it is if I'm trying to decide which food has the highest antioxidant, I'll play an imaginary game. I'll imagine picking up a red pepper or a tomato or a strawberry or broccoli or spinach and putting it in a white paper towel and crushing it or cutting it. Because if I open up the paper towel and I see that that food has bled a color into the paper towel, That is an antioxidant rich food, a powerhouse that'll be valuable for the body. So go for the colors first. The deepest greens, the deepest blues, the mustard yellows, the burnt oranges, everything that will bleed a color is the ones you will go with first. There are a couple of exceptions to the rule. Cauliflower is pure white and it's still incredibly healthy because it's a crucifer and a cancer fighter. Onions are almost, the white ones are not that useful. So go with the yellow and red ones. And then onions are useful because the yellow and red ones have quercetin. And even when we look at garlic, it's not really colored, but it's very powerful. It's a little bit yellow, and that's how you'll rationalize it. Make sure you eat it. So when we're taking a look at where the best are found, they're going to be in food and they're also going to be in supplements. The common ones are beta carotene, vitamin A, C, E, zinc, folate, and selenium. These are the ones that you grew up with. They have been in your multivitamin all of your life, and they're in most general multis. But the more powerful antioxidants we really need to focus on if we're going to build a wall around our health are OPCs, auric-based nutrients, resveratrol, astaxanthin, vitamin D, curcumin, coenzyme Q10, glutathione, and the superoxide dismutases, the metallic ones, copper, zinc, manganese, that we mentioned last night are already in our aloes. So we want to make sure we have those too. When we're looking at the antioxidant in foods, we're going to be thinking about tomato and red pepper for lycopene and vitamin C. Vitamin C will be there only as long as you preserve it. So it's destroyed by light and by heat. And so if you need vitamin C, you don't cook the tomato and you don't cook the sweet red pepper. You eat them raw and you eat them fresh cut. But if you need the lycopene, you cook that red pepper or the tomato and you have it, you consume it with a little bit of fat, and then that fat will carry that orange red pigment right to the breast tissue and the prostate gland. So tomato and red pepper are key. Eat some raw, eat some cooked. In terms of anthocyanidins and resveratrol, we're looking at grape skins, grape seeds, and grapes themselves. Catechins and polyphenol will be in green tea. We're going to eat salmon for the omega-3 fatty acids, nuts and seeds like almonds for selenium and vitamin E. We're going to eat our broccoli for beta carotene, for vitamin C, and for these magical cancer fighters, sulforaphane and dithiothione. We'll eat berries for anthocyanidins, all kinds of berries, and garlic because of allicin, spinach for beta carotene and vitamin C, as long as you haven't cooked it, and then onions for quercetin. Now, we need to consume nutritional supplements because, as we spoke last night, our food has reduced nutrients. There's a lot of harmful substances in the environment. We lead stressful lives and burn up in a state of stress. We're literally burning through our B vitamins and needing a lot more antioxidants. We eat out more frequently. We eat lots of processed food. We may be frying or overcooking or barbecuing, as we were mentioning, in terms of food handling. Food may not be as fresh. We may not even eat healthy if we're eating all those processed foods. And if we don't get the sleep, don't handle our stress, don't get the exercise, we truly need to add more than just the antioxidants in food. We should be considering nutritional supplementation. Food quality has absolutely declined over the years in terms of minerals and vitamins. Look at the difference between 1940 and 1999 in terms of the nutrients, especially things like zinc, magnesium. This is critical in fruit as well as vegetables. When we're looking at vitamins and minerals in the vegetables, it has drastically declined in terms of virtually everything. This is 1963, and this is 2000, red versus blue, with the exception of a few things like potassium and calcium, which may be added as part of the fertilizers. You can see the difference in the vitamins, vitamin A and vitamin C, in calcium for most of them, except those that have been fertilized. And so really we need to think about taking a supplement instead. Absorption matters, And we talked about that last night. I'm just going to whiz through these to remind you that very limited absorption occurs from pills. So we're going to be focusing instead on isotonic delivery. That's Market Singapore's claim to fame because they have access to isotonic capable nutrients that really hit the bloodstream so much faster than any pill ever could. Let's take a look at that. We'll be focusing on OPCs in the next few minutes. And I just want you to understand that if you took OPCs as a tablet versus OPCs as an isotonic capably delivered liquid, the liquid will hit the bloodstream in 10 minutes. It'll leave the intestines lightning fast, leave the stomach, hit the intestines, and hit the bloodstream in as little as 10 minutes, whereas a tablet will take as much as an hour to get there. And it'll stay there for almost 70, 80 minutes before it starts to crash. The tablet peaks, crashes down precipitously. And so I ask you, if you're attempting to manage inflammation, secure cardiovascular health, do all of the things that you need OPCs and other antioxidants to do, is it more valuable for them to work quickly or for them to work later? Most of you would answer, I'd rather have it hit the bloodstream and go to work as fast as possible. So we will be talking now about isotonic OPCs. And the key ingredient, the one I'm most excited about, is pine bark, also known as pycnogenol. This is a natural plant extract. It's made from the barks of the maritime pine tree, and we find that in the southwest regions of France. This is an unspoiled natural forest with no pollutants. This is an organic forest with the absolute best source of the most spectacular pine in the world. This is not to be confused with other types of pine trees. It's a specialized pine tree, and the entire forest is owned by one company. That company is called Horfag, and they own the worldwide rights, this German company, to every single inch of the barks of these trees. It's a monstrous, monstrous pine forest. When we're talking about OPCs, the claims that we can make in Singapore is that it promotes cardiovascular and joint health, helps maintain healthy cholesterol and blood glucose levels, supports the vessel function, and supports a healthy complexion. And I will be going through these in much more depth. But it's important to know what the ingredients are. So there is grape seed extracts, red grape skin extracts, pine bark itself, bilberry. Those are the three proanthocyanidins. Then there is bilberry leaf and citrus bioflavonoids. And these are helper nutrients to make these others work very well. Now, for those of you who are not very comfortable with this term, proanthocyanidins, maybe you never learned about them in school. I know as a clinical nutritionist, I teach at medical schools and I also teach in dietetic programs. And believe it or not, even though in Europe they have been used for years, probably close to 80 years, and in America, probably less than about 20, they're still not taught in the curricula of any medical practitioner in the States. And that is such a tragedy because this is something that is so critically important for health and life. What you need to understand is that these are the purple pigments, and you know the food grade ones. You know blueberry, blackberry, raspberry. You know plums, red cabbage, and beets. You can imagine that purple pigment, and that purple pigment is biologically protective, hugely important for life and health. And so the lay OPCs or the food grade ones are the ones I just mentioned. But then if you ratchet up medical protection or biological protection, now we're looking at barks of trees, skins and seeds, and that's where the most glorious protection lands. So when we're taking a look, I had mentioned a little earlier that OPCs are much stronger than vitamin E and vitamin C. Look at the difference. Here's what the antioxidant capacity is of vitamin E, way down here. And look at vitamin C, just a little better, and OPCs 50 times stronger. So when we're back to talking about pycnogenol itself, It is my favorite of all the antioxidants in the world. I told you where it grows, but I didn't mention that it's a 2,400-acre forest. When we have been looking at clinical trials over the last 80 years, there are more than 400 scientific and clinical studies. So this is a well-researched, incredibly safe nutrient. I mentioned it can regenerate the other antioxidants, and all of them are helpful. So vitamin E is going to protect the cell membranes from free radical damage. It's also going to support cardiovascular health and strengthen your immune system. We will look at pycnogenol again when we talk about eye health, but pycnogenol is actually going to come in your mouth, enter, swallow it down. When it enters the bloodstream, it literally goes everywhere. So it will go opening up the circulatory beds up to the basement membranes of the eyes, feeding the eyes with nutrients and mopping up free radicals, both in the eyes and as it flows up to the brain, in the brain. OPCs will go all the way down to the toes, securing blood flow to the toes through the kidneys. So imagine that someone that is battling diabetes, who is worried about loss of eyes and kidneys and toes, will have much more security when they're taking OPCs, specifically because pycnogenol will open the circulatory beds and do just that. I'm moving back so that I can talk about these in great length. So when we're talking about cardiovascular health, the first thing I want you to know is that when OPCs, pycnogenol specifically, enters the bloodstream, it releases nitric oxide, which dilates those vessels. I said that they will go all the way up and all the way down. It will also make the platelets unstick, so they're less prone to clotting. So those of us who over the years have taken an aspirin a day are now going to find that we have full protection with our platelets. We call that deaggregated, unstuck, just because of the functionality of the OPCs themselves, the work that they do. So the circulatory beds are opened, the platelets are not sticking together. The LDL cholesterol is no longer sticking on the arterial lining, and all of that secures cardiovascular health. They're also going to go down to the joints and protect those joints from free radical damage, as we talked about with preserving cartilage. In getting through and preventing the cholesterol from sticking, we're going to be maintaining healthier cholesterol levels, LDL will drop, and that's really what we are aiming to do. So we're not considering as frequently the use of a statin drug. We're going to do it more naturally with healthy diet, with the fibers that we talked about last night, and with the use of OPCs. They also improve the functionality of the insulin receptor sites. So while they might be dormant for some of us in the presence of OPCs, the blood glucose will be used better and will start to drop. So they really do support healthy blood sugar levels. They also support the health of the blood vessels. They are so intelligent. They work to make the structures stronger. So if we know people that tend to have feet that swell at the end of the day, that's because the vessels that feed that actually feed from the trunk down to the feet, they're weeping, they're fragile, they're not really strong and resilient. In the presence of pycnogenol, we can strengthen the structure of the vessel and close the pores so they weep less. It really makes a stronger vein. And there's a lot of clinical trials that talk about the strength of those vessels. So if someone is being injected to open up vessels that have been damaged from venous disorders, chronic venous insufficiency specifically, we can make a stronger vessel. We do that with both pycnogenol and vitamin C. Now let's talk a little bit about the complexion. Complexion is made stronger and more healthy, and the skin more plump and vibrant because OPCs will actually force collagen production. They improve hyaluronic acid and collagen production. So we look younger and we age better. There's a few other things that didn't make it to this slide that I would like to mention about the isotonic OPCs. They really do secure neurologic function, and there's a lot of research that speaks to that. They prevent the free radicals from entering the brain and damaging the brain. We're going to next talk about maximum ORAC. And maximum ORAC gets its name from the nutrients that are in it. We did talk about mopping up oxygen free radicals big time with OPCs. Well, when we're starting to look at ORAC, we're talking about a completely different complex of nutrients. These are still proanthocyanidins, but they're coming from the food sources. So all of the ones that I'd mentioned earlier, blueberry, raspberry, elderberry, pomegranate, these are in the ORAC formula along with vitamin C and vitamin E. And these food grade antioxidants, including the cranberry, have a lot of diversified value. Now, you might be wondering about that name, oxygen radical absorptive capacity. Where does this come from? It actually is a procedure, it's a test that we do in a lab when we examine the oxygen absorbing capacity of any food that we bump into. So if a food is going to be challenged with free radicals, the more free radicals it can mop up, the higher its absorptive capacity. So certain foods, like dark chocolate, believe it or not, are the highest oxygen radical absorbing capacity foods in the world, and milk chocolate right behind it. Astaxanthin is way up there too. But with the maximum ORAC formula, they selected the foods that can silence the largest amount of free radicals and put them in there. And those will be the elderberry and cranberry, the blueberry, and that's what's there. Let me just explain, though, that these antioxidants have functionality beyond just absorbing free radicals. The cranberry, for example, gives you the option of making your vessels almost Teflon coated, and not just the vessels, but the organs of the body. So you know what a Teflon pan looks like and feels like. Food cooks on it and peels right off. Well, imagine that in the presence of cranberry inside this supplement, as things like microbes, bacteria, wants to make plaque in your mouth. If cranberry has already entered your mouth, the Streptococcus mutans bounces on, bounces off, and never can attach to make plaque. If we're talking about the bladder lining and you've been consuming ORAC, imagine that the bladder lining, if E. coli bounces on it, it bounces off it, it literally changes shape, passes out into the urine. And so it's not only bactericidal, because you're killing it off, but it's bacteriostatic. It won't adhere. There's a lot of bugs that like to make infections in the gut. And if cranberry is already there, it's very, very difficult for H. pylori to make an infection there. So imagine that it's sort of Teflon coating all of the parts of the body. And that's just one of the ingredients. Another ingredient in there is elderberry. And elderberry is a potent antiviral. So consuming this every day provides both antibacterial support, not in the form of an antibiotic, but in the format of adherence, anti-adherence, so that these organisms aren't sticking. And then antiviral component, sort of like aloes, because it really builds up the wall so that you can identify viruses and take them out. Pomegranate is also in this formula. And pomegranate has the capacity to do what we call apoptosis. Apoptosis means helping the body identify aberrant cells and killing them off. That is really useful when we have cancer cells that are growing, because we have to be able to identify them and take them out. The pomegranate in this formula and other things that you'll want to think about. So curcumin does this, resveratrol does it too, and bromelain helps you identify aberrant cancer cells and take them out. So here's the nutrients that are in here: the blueberry, elderberry, pomegranate, cranberry, raspberry. All of them donate electrons to free radicals and take them out. All of them have value above and beyond their capacity to take out free radicals. So be thinking about them for the rest of the support they give the body. Vitamin C is next, and this has so many functions. It provides tremendous antioxidant capacity, even though it's not as strong as OPCs. It's prolific, it works everywhere. And it supports our immune system, our skeletal system, and muscular, our other muscle systems, our cardiovascular, and our skin. The tendons, the ligaments, all of the blood vessels, as I mentioned earlier, with our venous systems. It assists in wound healing, supports healthy bone and cartilage repair, and it plays a role in the neurotransmitter functions too. This is a study talking about vitamin C sparing vitamin E that we mentioned earlier, protecting in a live body. That's what in vivo means: the oxidation of lipids, which are your body fats, as well as the DNA. And in this study of smokers, it lowered the incidence and mortality from cardiovascular disease as well as cancers. Vitamin C, like OPCs, can improve our body's ability to prevent LDL from sticking. We called it reducing the LDL by donating electrons to it. Who needs it? Well, every single one of us, because unlike most of the animals in the animal world, we don't make it. We're not capable of doing that. And especially if we're eating a highly processed diet and very little raw food, we might find that we need it, and we, especially under stress, need more. So who should be thinking about this? Everybody, but absolutely seniors, anyone with a weakened immune system, smokers because they annihilate it, people that are highly stressed, our athletes because they are burning through their antioxidants, anyone consuming excess alcohol or taking pharmaceuticals should be thinking about taking that. Now, if you're not having enough, this is one of the nutrients that we will see early on signs of a deficiency. You could see from this picture that there would be red, swollen, and bleeding gums. You really need to boost your vitamin C if that's taking place. We'll see atherosclerotic plaques because the cholesterol is floating around and sticking. Rough and bumpy skin, easy bruising and bleeding, painful swollen joints, weakened cartilage because of the inappropriate amount, the lack of collagen, the inability to heal wounds rapidly and safely, muscle degeneration, muscle pain. Frequently, we will see iron deficiency anemia, small cells when we look into the microscope, significant depression and fatigue. As the hair grows out, it kind of looks like a curly Q corkscrew with little red tips at the base, red follicles. And then without adequate vitamin C, we cannot fight infections. So our predisposition to infections goes through the roof. Symptoms can occur in as little as 30 days up to about 3 months before we would see all of these. But if you are completely eating a diet devoid of vitamin C, you will see some of these. When we're trying to distinguish between the various antioxidants, it's really important to understand that OPC is just the broadest of antioxidants, not just supporting a complexion and vessels and joints, but when you compare it with everything else, it is a mega antioxidant. Vitamin C is still going to be providing a lot of the same. It's an antioxidant. It's going to address and secure your immune system and promote the skeletal, muscular, and skin health. Acai is something we'll speak about much later today. And this is a nutrient blend that has xanthones and many other nutrients in it. But all by itself, acai is a fantastic antioxidant that does promote the energy levels of the body and the immunity, cognitive functions, and cardiovascular functions. Briefly, let's talk about advanced B complex, only because it will secure red blood cell functionality, the metabolisms of the body, and help us use all of the other vitamins and antioxidants. We know they occur all together in our daily essentials packets, and we know how to use them. We talked about this last night. I want to move on to thiaminol because this is something that we really want to talk about for a bit. Thiaminol is a new supplement that was introduced just at the last convention we were all at. And it contains two powerhouse antioxidants, pycnogenol as well as thymoquin. Now, we've mentioned pycnogenol. We'll mention more about it in a minute, as well as thymoquin, so you get a good feel. We've talked about pycnogenol being the absolute best in class of all the barks. We talked about the fact that it has over 400 clinical studies and how it secures collagen synthesis, why it's useful for joints, for brain, for circulation. But thymoquin is just as useful, and it absolutely is the best of class of the black cumin seeds or cumin seed oil. It's been around forever. There are studies that talk about Egyptians being mummified with it in the mummies. It's been described in the Bible, mentioned in the Quran. And since the 60s, there have been thousands, 1,000+ clinical studies. So it's probably the most clinically researched ingredient of the black cumin seed. And when we use a thymoquin, when we're using this particular version of black cumin seed, what's powerful about it is that they've used the entire seed, not isolates, not just pieces of the oil, but the entire seed. Unlike other cumin seeds, this one is the only standardized black cumin seed on the market with an actual 3% thymoquin documented. And that's really important because if you compare it to 8 in a clinical trial, the only one that reached nitric oxide inhibition, that means it's stopping free radicals and addressing inflammation at a very high level. The only one that was capable of doing that to the level of 35% of nitric oxide inhibition was the thymoquin. Nothing else even compared. It has a strong anti-inflammatory component. It is useful for cardiovascular well-being, for the heart health, for the mental health, and for your immune competence. When we're looking at black cumin seeds, we have to make sure that the seeds are fresh. And this company that they've acquired the cumin seeds from, they're using fresh seeds and cold pressing them. They're not using any other extraction modalities. There are no chemicals. These are very well controlled to preserve the oil and make sure it's fresh. And this will yield the proper ratios of 4 major components. The thymoquin, which is the most important one, but free fatty acids are important too, because if they're very, very high, they will decrease the antioxidant capacity and anti-inflammatory capacity. And the thymoquin preparation has very low levels of free fatty acids. There's also P-cymine, which has to be standardized to 1%. And when it's combined with thymoquin, it works really, really well. And finally, carbachol is another one of the nutrients that can occur in black seed oils. It should be in very small quantities because the higher levels will reduce the effectiveness of the thymoquin. So this particular thymoquinone has very, very low levels of the carbachol. Now, what's important to know about black seed oils is any other nutrient that you take at the same time, they will potentiate the absorption and the use. So if you're taking astaxanthin or if you're taking omega-3s at the same time that you're taking thiaminol with this black seed oil, you will get a much larger outcome, a much more significant outcome for health. And that's really critically important. That composition is patent pending, and I've just been alerted that we're no longer doing cap and cap technologies. So we don't have to worry about that. They found a newer way of creating it. But here's the summary. Thiaminol, this product, is going to be incredibly useful for supporting blood pressure, not only because of the black cumin, but because of the pycnogenol. When pycnogenol is floating through the arteries, it will relax them. And one of the places that it works most potently is in the kidney on the efferent arteriole. Now, this is a vessel that tends to get tight. And when it relaxes, blood pressure naturally comes down. For the practitioners that are listening tonight, it's very similar to the pharmaceutical like ACE inhibitors and ARBs, but it will do it naturally to relax the vessels. So it's really, really useful for people that are trying to support a healthier blood pressure. It's also useful because of the pycnogenol in it. The thiaminol will support healthy cholesterol and triglycerides. And overall, it'll support a healthier weight. Next, I'm going to talk about curcumin extreme, one of my favorite products. This will help you to promote the regeneration of cells, supports liver detoxification, and helps maintain that glutathione that we mentioned earlier, the granddaddy of all antioxidants, the one that regulates our detoxification systems and our immunity. Glutathione can protect your brain and all of the organs that are throughout your body from free radical attack. And glutathione will also work like OPC to recycle vitamin E and vitamin C. What's in this particular formulation is a newer version of curcumin. It was previously known as BCM 95, and it's now been renamed CurcuGreen. It has the biologically active components of turmeric, which is this orange yellow pigment. That's the curcumin. And this particular version of curcumin has 5 active curcuminoids, which is extraordinary. Virtually none on the market have that many potent curcuminoids. Unfortunately, for those of us who just assume that we can sprinkle turmeric on our food, and many of us from our heritage, especially if we are from India or that part of the world, we like to put turmeric on our foods. Please understand that as a source of curcuminoids, you'd have to consume turmeric all day long in really exorbitant quantities in order to get the blood levels of curcumin up to do adequate functioning. Because turmeric has, and curcumin coming from turmeric has very, very poor bioavailability. And actually, for most supplements, it also is difficult to absorb. So this particular version has highly bioactive and bioavailable curcuminoids, and that allows it to have spectacular health benefits. Also in this formula is broccoli seed extract, and the health aspects of broccoli seed and other crucifers have been known for years and years. There have been clinical trials where they take broccoli as a head and put it in a blender or puree it, and then put an injection of this along the stomach lining of lab animals that are growing stomach cancers. And when they inject the broccoli slurry, the nutrients that are in that broccoli, the sulforaphane, glucosinolates, as well as dithiothione, will kill off those cancer cells that are growing along the lining of that wall. So that's not for you to extrapolate that buying a head of broccoli for a family of 5 and eating it once a week will do it. Broccoli in the clinical trials, if you're looking for protection from crucifers like that, you really need to eat it at least 3 times a week if you're going to have extraordinary protection from cancers. It's not the kind of thing where you can just eat it on a one-time basis. So I'd prefer you think about getting it in a much more powerful version. And the broccoli seed extract really offers that. That's why it's in this formula. It works synergistically with the curcuminoids and with another magical helper nutrient, an amino acid chelated selenium that is easily, readily bioavailable and useful as an antioxidant to help reboot and work with glutathione. This is a really great formula. We'll be talking a lot about it next week in terms of inflammation, but just understand we'll be thinking about this for cardiovascular health, for brain and cognitive health, for liver health and detoxification, and cell regeneration. I had mentioned apoptosis and the fact that pomegranate is really useful at helping the body identify aberrant cancer cells as they grow out. Well, curcumin is another one of the ingredients that initiates or potentiates the mechanism of identifying these aberrant cells. So think about it as something that you probably want to include every single day because it's really powerful. We include OPCs, we think about including thiamine, and we absolutely think about including the curcumin formulas. We're next going to talk about astaxanthin, and I promise we'll spend more time again a little bit later after our break. This is a very, very unusual antioxidant because it works throughout the cell structure. Normally, we had said that we might see vitamin C out in the exterior, not the cell membranes, but in the centers of the cell, and beta carotene in the fatty structures. But astaxanthin actually works the entire length and breadth. It permeates everywhere, and it can mop up everything: oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and carbon free radicals. It is also incredibly stable. It is so stable that it can never become a pro-oxidant. And this is something we need to be thinking about. Sometimes when we're talking about taking beta carotene in supplement form, you may not be aware that someone that smokes cigarettes can actually activate the beta carotene in a multivitamin and launch it into an oxidant, into a free radical. Well, astaxanthin, in the presence of any kind of free radical, in a bomb of free radicals, will never launch into an oxidant. Never. It is the most stable nutrient in the world. You can put it in a microwave and nothing will happen to it. It is incredibly useful and protective. It has the capacity as a potent antioxidant to be light years longer lasting than alpha lipoic acid, green tea and catechins, CoQ10 and vitamin C. It is a massive free radical scavenger. And when I said it's highly stable, that's the takeaway. Last night we talked about ginkgo and the fact that of all the green and leafy things, this one little herbal will be potent as an antioxidant and highly stable, even under radiation. Well, astaxanthin is the same type of protection for your body because it's highly stable. It'll never morph into anything that could hurt you. Astaxanthin is going to support your blood lipids. It's going to support healthy cholesterol, healthy triglycerides. It will actually raise the HDL, and we have not talked about that yet. So that's something useful for you because total lipids will normalize and truly have cardiovascular protection. It will improve the blood flow through the capillaries. There have been never any adverse effects reported. You're going to be thinking about it in terms of improving your circulation, the delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the cells, removing metabolic wastes. And I like to think about it for many other reasons. It helps you use different fuel sources. So somebody that is a performance athlete, a marathon runner, a swimmer, you're going to be using a lot of fuels. And at some point, you hit the wall and you start to produce lactic acid. In the presence of astaxanthin, you will produce less, so you can have much more endurance. This is an exquisite supplement for cardiovascular health, and we'll be also looking at it in a bit for eye health because it works just as well there. But when we look at sources of it, I just want to make sure I didn't skip something down there. No. It's important to understand that astaxanthin is a type of beta carotene. It's a carotenoid, but it is really, really different from the other carotenoids in the carotenoid kingdom. So we all know that beta carotene comes from green leafy vegetables, from orange, things like winter squash. It also is in tomatoes and peppers, and beta carotene is one type of carotenoid. Lycopene that we mentioned a little bit earlier, is another carotenoid, fat soluble to protect breast and prostate, um, not cooked to protect the rest of our body. But when it comes to astaxanthin, the food sources are something that are very precious in our environment. Things like shrimp and lobster, crustaceans, they contain this coral colored pigment. It is what makes the salmon that we're getting in the supermarket look that pink or orange color. And that particular pigment is a safe pigment. It's not like a food dye. So if you see it being added to more foods in the future, it's protective, it can't hurt you. Please understand that if we needed to rely on those crustaceans as a source for our astaxanthin, we would burn up the food supply and we'd use it up. So there's another way of getting it. I just want to make sure I have a slide for it, and then I'll go back to that other one. We want to acquire it from a different source. And the geniuses of these scientists in Sweden figured out a way to do it. They discovered they could grow astaxanthin on microalgae in these huge organic ponds. And this is a completely safe and clean, renewable source. It's important because there are people who love shellfish that if we consumed that until it was gone, we wouldn't ever have it again. And for people that can't tolerate shellfish because they're allergic, now they have a source that they can absolutely tolerate. In this version that we've acquired in a very, very tiny gel-like delivery system, it comes as a 6 milligram dose. But please know that clinical trials occur in both 6 and 12 milligrams, and they're safe at either level. So if you are using astaxanthin for any of these reasons, to support cardiovascular health, to secure your vision, and we'll be talking about that, to use it to make every one of your other antioxidants work better, to promote healthy skin and its elasticity, then you're probably going to want to think about moving between a 6 and 12 milligram dose because you can. It's safe at both. So that's really going to conclude what we're going to say about free radicals and oxidant stress. I'm going to apologize to you. This was not the presentation that I have been working on for the past week. When my computer crashed, apparently it destroyed that particular file. So I was working from memory. I will gladly, at another time, repeat this presentation with my slides so that you get the full benefit of all the other things I wanted to say and wanted to teach. You got a limited version of pycnogenol. Normally, I could speak on pycnogenol for 8 hours, and I want you to have the benefit of that. So if you're willing to invite me back, I am willing at no cost to do this same first part of this lecture, again, focusing in more depth and giving you better slides than the ones that were from this version. So with that, I'm going to we won't be taking a break. We're going to go ahead and have Leanne pop on and do our testimonials.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sharon.
I am so sorry. I could not
Don't
believe it.
ever apologize. No, we didn't even know anything was different. But
Oh,
learning
when you see the other presentation, you will know it was different.
Great. Next Saturday, we are on already. So not to worry, you can make up for whatever you think that we lack.
Excellent.
But we're already learning a lot. Your memory is amazing then. Okay, let me get on to our next segment and you can, we'll go on to share screen. Awesome. I will stop your screen. Is that okay?
Absolutely, please.
Okay, here we are. Yep, we've got everybody here. So we are in for another treat now. First of all, I just want to thank every one of these panelists who have decided to to volunteer their story, share their amazing experiences with our isotonic products and the products that we have. And just to mention again that whatever they're sharing is their own personal experience, and they're not meant to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. So this is a personal sharing from this particular individuals. Thank you again. With that, let me invite the first of our panelists, and she is, let me show you. Oh, sorry, I click on. Okay, so we have here Jacqueline Koo. Jacqueline Koo is actually, she's actually a social worker, a very beautiful Christian lady that I know, a wife to Steve Tan, whom we work closely together. And so when I saw her sharing this testimonial, I said, Jacqueline, I think the whole field needs to listen to this. So here Jacqueline is, and she's going to share her testimonial, not her particular story, it's somebody else's, somebody whom she knows, somebody who is one of her preferred customer using bromelain and experiencing this wonderful results, right, Jacqueline? So over on to you, Jacqueline.
Okay, hi everybody. Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can.
Yeah, I firstly thank you, Dr. Sharon, for the very wonderful sharing. I really learned a lot this morning, and thank you, Leanne, for the chance to share this little testimony. So, particularly, it's about bromelain, because someone I know actually had a condition where he's a 70-ish-year-old man with an existing heart condition. He has his arteries that are 80% blocked, and but yet his heart functioning is at 18%. Hence, it was risky whether to do a bypass surgery or not. So he chose not to do a surgery, but decided to take some of our products. And at the same time, he has diabetes. And so with diabetes, we know that the circulation is very poor, and coupled with his weak heart, what happened is he developed actually a foot ulcers on the base of his foot, but because of the poor circulation, he didn't feel the pain. He didn't know that the foot ulcer was happening until it got quite bad and that he noticed. And so we decided to get him to try bromelain. And initially, what the doctors said was that it could take months for foot ulcers to heal, if at all. And there's always, as with diabetic patients, the risk of having his toe amputated if it doesn't heal, and get septic. So we are very happy with the results. That maybe we can show the next slide.
Be prepared, everyone, to see this.
Very raw pictures, yeah. Yeah, so you can see that initially it was quite a bad rod. And then after that, these are the pictures that we take every month. And so when the doctors say that it takes months to heal, we were very pleasantly surprised that this is what happens after 2 months. So I think it is very good progress, and he managed to save his toe. And I also just realized after hearing Dr. Lawrence that, I realized he was also concurrently taking OPC, curcumin, and astaxanthin as well. So I believe that could have helped with the overall healing and the circulation. So we are very thankful. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that story. That's somebody else's foot, and it looks so painful. So I don't even want to show it too much. Thanks, Jacqueline, for that story. And we'll go on to our next speaker. And she's Elaine Go, this beautiful Elaine Go. I traveled to Miami with her before, and she has an amazing story to share about Thimonol, the product that was just featured just minutes ago. So Elaine, over on to you.
Hi, everybody. Morning. Thank you, Leanne, for giving me this opportunity. So this episode happened after the 2019 leadership convention. And what happened was I noticed that my leg was not good. And by Monday, it was a noticeable pain. So I took some bromelain and went throughout the day. By the time Tuesday came, the pain was really noticeable, and it came in waves off and on. But when the pain came, it was as though somebody was drilling into my bones. And I was out running around, and I remembered that a fellow UFO, Linda, had some Tylenol with her. So I said, "Hey, can I come and get some from you?" And she said, "Sure, why not?" So I went to her. I took 2 in the car, and then I came home, took another 2 after dinner. And that went on for the next day on Wednesday as well. And by Wednesday, when I got up on Wednesday morning, the pain was really bad. So I said, okay, maybe I should check in with the doctor and rule out anything sinister. So the doctor says, no, it's just probably some inflammation of the tendon, maybe, not enough movement and so on. So I said, okay, I'm not afraid of inflammation. we have a solution for inflammation. So I carried on with the Tylenol. And by Thursday after lunch, by Thursday the pain had subsided considerably, and by after lunch it was totally gone. So I think that
Wow.
it was this. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing story on Thibenol. Wonderful. A lot of us should, after listening to Sharon,
Fantastic.
I can't get enough of Thibenol. So what would you think, Sharon, would be the maximum dosage I should take on Thibenol if I have severe inflammation?
Okay, so I'm going to be covering a lot of that next week, but let's, as an advance, say this. There
Okay.
are so many supplements that secure our bodies and modulate inflammatory markers,
Mm,
not the least of which is OPC. That was
right.
part of the slides you didn't get to see. So imagine that rather than taking more Thimenol, diversify. So take OPCs,
Good.
take ORAC, because ORAC added to OPCs makes it 100-fold stronger. Anytime you add antioxidants together, there's a cumulative effect, not an additive effect.
Right.
So I don't know in terms of safety studies, what's the maximum amount of black cumin seed you can take.
Mm-hmm.
There's a staggering amount of pycnogenol you can take. So the OPC piece of it, the pycnogenol piece, is not the limiting factor.
Okay.
I don't know how much of the thymoquin has been clinically studied at very large doses. So rather than take more, take others.
Okay, understand. So I remember what you was emphasized by one of my leaders as well, Christine Lee, at her recent calling. She said, I still remember, Sharon Lawrence sharing about how if you combine OPC with vitamin C, it's 10 times more powerful. And if you combine OPC with ORAC, it's 100 times more powerful.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
if money is not a problem, for me, this is my personal experience. I rather combine my OPC. Remember, OPC is not a standalone product. I have to emphasize it over and over again every time I do a health training. It's not a standalone product, and the best complement would be ORAC if money is
Yes.
not a problem. Otherwise, stick with your vitamin C, which has a lot of clinical studies anyway. Thank you, Elaine. I'll move on to our
That
next.
was such a great testimonial, Elaine. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next, okay, so this is a story. Sorry, I should have given, but it's a bunch of words. So I rather hear Elaine than reading this. The next one comes from Perth, Australia. Helen Tay. I've heard her story when I was at the local seminar last year, but nothing like hearing her in person and sharing with the rest of the Asia Pacific market. So Helen, over on to you to share your testimonial.
Hi, everybody. Okay, my name is Helen. I'm from Perth, and I'm actually 72 going to 73. So I've had diabetes for a long time. Thank you. Now, before I start, again, I'd like to thank Leanne and Felicia for inviting me to share this testimonial, and Sharon for giving up a little bit of your time for me. I've enjoyed your presentation so much. I've learned a lot. My journey with MA or Market Australia started in February 2014. I had at that time just had shoulder surgery and was in great pain. And I was introduced to MA, to calcium and OPC3 to help me with my pain. And what I did, I only took one dose of each. At that time, I'm not a believer of supplements. So, and when you say use powder, you know how in Malaysia when you use herbal, you sort of close your nose and sort of drink. So I thought this is it. This is going. So I was quite reluctant to start. And then I met another UFO and I was complaining to her. I said, oh, it's not effective. I said, because I've taken it and it's not helping me. And she said, what is the dosage? And I said, oh, I just take one OPC and one calcium plus. And she said, no, no, no. She said, you got to take more. So I took 2 OPCs and 2 calcium plus. And I tell you, within 2 or 3 weeks, I've weaned myself off Celebrex. Now, Celebrex is a very heavy painkiller, right? So my belief got a bit better. And then what I did, I decided that maybe I should increase my dosage for myself, maybe get better faster. So anyway, during that time when I was in pain and I was doing my shoulder surgery, my medication for my diabetes was 3 needles. I had 1 for insulin and 2 Byetta because I was quite plump then, and it helps me. And then I also had 3 metformins. So what I did, because I just took my normal OPC and calcium. And when I went to see my specialist a few months after that, he said to me, oh, you've done something. He said, your diabetes control is much better. So I said, oh, that's good. So he then decided, he told me, look, stop taking 1 of your insulin. So to me, that was great. 1 less needle. My God, I was celebrating. And so I increased my dosage of OPC. I do 3 OPC sometimes, just, intermittently. And then I took Advanced B. And at that time, I think isochrome came into Australia. And I was told so much about isochrome. So I decided to do isochrome 2 doses a day. And after 5.5 years that I'm on all these things, actually within 2 years, I have stopped all my needles. I do not take any more needles. Hallelujah. Yeah, I was so happy. I'm still
Amazing.
on, there it is. And I'm still on my medication for in tablets, but that was okay. It's a big, to me, that was such a huge improvement. And I've then since became a big seller of isochrome and OPC, thank God. It was great. And then,
Sorry, I don't know. Just hold on a second. I don't know what happened.
luckily, it's a handsome man's face, so that's
I'm
okay.
sorry, I don't know what happened.
Don't worry. Tonight is the night of computers screwing up.
I just went. Just give me 1 second.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Keep going, Helen. We
Yeah,
want.
that's the story. And just my testimony. So, like I said, so I know that diabetes, Sharon would probably agree with me. It's a progressive disease, right? As you get older, it sort of gets a bit worse. And but I'm happy that I've managed to delay that progress. This is something you don't want to progress anyway. Really, you want to stunt it back. So anyway, and I know I need to tell you people that I am a lover of desserts. I really love my desserts. And when I wasn't on these supplements, whenever I take my dessert, the next day I sometimes refuse to take my blood test because I know it's to double figures. Yeah, it just does that. But now it seems to be okay. It spiked a little bit, not as high because I always take my isochrome, and that to me that's another improvement as far as I'm concerned. And whenever I go on holidays, you know how you go wild with your food, I always come back. And what I do is I do a TLS. I follow my TLS program for just a few weeks, just to get rid of that.
Back on track.
High blood. And then now I'm happy.
That's
And
a wonderful testimonial.
Can I just ask, do you also take omega-3s?
Yes, I do. Now I do, yes.
You should.
Yeah.
For the cardiovascular component.
Yeah. I also take astaxanthin now because it's just introduced.
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah, I love that. And I just like to add one thing. My husband said, you must add me. So I've added my husband. He has psoriatic arthritis. And that was very bad. And he takes a lot of medication for that. And it was like he has to have a blood test every month to make sure his kidneys are not affected by this, right? And so he decided to take 6 OPCs every day for a while. And guess what? Now he has no medication whatsoever for his psoriatic arthritis. So that is
wonderful.
Anyway, thank you everyone for giving me this time to share.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
It was great.
to your husband as well for his testimonial, the handsome young man beside you. Okay,
Yeah.
Helen. And maybe while Helen makes her exit, Sharon, I just want to address two things that part of the Q&A, that all the questions. Number one is calcium. Is there such a thing as too much calcium? Because some people are concerned about how it affects the kidney. What is your take on that? And the other question related to Helen's testimonial is, a lot of people say, some of the supplements that we take seem to be, especially for Asians, with our Asian palate, seems to be a bit too sweet. And how do you address that when you are diabetic? So Helen has clearly demonstrated that despite being a diabetic, the isotonics, I saw her measurements, 5 teaspoons, seems to work okay for her. So I'll just like a little comment from you on these two things before we move
Okay.
on to the next panelist.
Absolutely. So in terms of what's too much calcium, let's first talk about dosing calcium. There is actually a threshold that should never be breached. And that threshold is 400 milligrams of calcium at one sitting. There is so much science that is imbued into these products by the medical team that actually designs it, that when the isotonic calcium was actually acquired, they stipulated, we're talking about more than 20 years ago, that there'd be less than 400 milligrams. So in fact, there's 375 milligrams per serving. You should never take 2 servings at one time, never. They have to be in divided doses, one in the morning, one at night. Now, in terms of calcium and kidney function, there are certain people that are stone formers. Sometimes these are oxalate stones, sometimes they're not. And it really is an individual thing. I think it's very difficult to predict who is going to have a problem. But in the 20 years of me using this supplement with my patients, my entire family, and as a consultant to over 110 practices, I can tell you that we have not had any incidents of kidney stones. So I think that speaks to thousands of patients using it.
And is it because it's water soluble as well?
I'm not sure that's it, but I think it's because of this particular types of calcium that is in it. It's not just calcium carbonate, the inexpensive salts.
Yes.
These are very sophisticated sources. There's 5 sources of calcium in that product, along with malic acid and other acids, so that as soon as it hits the bloodstream, it's disassociating into these spectacular versions of calcium that will relax the vessels and, do so many things.
Okay, great. So
Now, the other question?
About the sweetness of our isotonic
Okay.
product. So will the fructose that we take affect our blood sugar levels?
Okay, and I know you had asked me something similar last night. Let's really address this. Fructose and any of the other sugars in very large quantities can affect blood sugar. It's one of the reasons why both Deidre and I, when we are teaching, try to encourage no more than 5 individual isotonics at a sitting. Now, some people will say, well, can I take them a half an hour later? No, that's too soon. This means you have them, you launch them, you wait the 5 minutes per cap, they're in the bloodstream, and then maybe 6, 7 hours later, have some more. Or one individual one here, one individual there. But if you're going to do another 5, make sure it's after lunch. Give yourself the chance to clear the blood sugars. Now, if OPCs are any part of that mix, you can never worry about the blood sugar rising too high, because the OPC will improve the insulin receptivity. Your insulin receptor sites will kick in and be much more viable. So blood sugar drops as opposed to rises, and you won't be worrying about it impacting. But that said, we don't push our luck by having OPC in tandem with lots of other supplements and still expecting OPC to perform some magic. Keep it to 5 for safety.
Wonderful. Okay, I really like the fact that you say if I add OPC to it, which most of us do, we can't live without OPC. So when somebody asks me, can I substitute ORAC with OPC? I say, sorry, OPC is you cannot substitute with anything else.
Nothing is a substitute for OPC.
That's right.
Although I will tell you,
Non-negotiable.
from your global store, you have access to a supplement called resveratrol.
Yes.
And in a rare circumstance, you will find some clients that will not be able to tolerate OPC for one reason or another. Maybe they're pine allergic. I have in my own world, the physician that I work with, the first physician I ever taught about these supplements, who uses them in his practice, he's allergic to it. He coughs.
Mm.
So when we have a cough with OPC, that is not something we grow accustomed, we grow out of. You don't accommodate to that. You're not tolerating it. So I ended up using resveratrol for him because it's virtually identical.
Right. I love
And
resveratrol. Okay, but then that hopefully one day we can bring that into.
I'm sure you will.
Yes, I'm going to work with corporate on that. So thank you for those answers. I'm sorry if that delayed a little bit, but then that helps us clear some of the Q&A. I've been busy looking at all the questions and see which one we can answer out of the 100. Now is 150 questions waiting to be answered.
Whoa.
Wow, we're going to spend all day and all night. You probably can't sleep tonight. Okay, the next one we have is our beautiful Cindy Lynn. Cindy, welcome now. You can unmute yourself. This lady,
Hi, Cindy.
I've
Hello.
never met her
Hi,
before.
everybody.
I've never met her before, but I asked her whether she could help out, because she has an amazing eye testimonial. And readily she said, sure. So I'm happy to have Cindy today. This morning was the first time I got to hear her talk. She's been in the business for 4 years now. That's wonderful. And mom of two, freelance makeup artist. Share your story, Cindy. We love to hear. Over to you now.
Sure. Thanks, Lillian. Thanks, Lillian, give me this opportunity to, let me share my personal testimony to everybody. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very much for these 2 days training. Although it's like, wow, so informative, but it's good to know.
I made you sign up for this, remember? Yes.
Yes, that's right. Okay. Here's my story. Actually, this happened to me back in 2 years ago. 2 years ago, you can go to the next page. 2 years ago, I just, joined my ex company, um, because due to, the workload is like kind of like very huge. And that's what happened on the June 16th. That night, I remember that date because it's like so sudden symptom comes to me, which is when I about to sleep, and I just viewing my handphone, some message. Then all of a sudden my left eyes, okay, um, you know, seems like a little bit yellowish tinted color with about one size of about 10 to 20 cents that size of floaters floating around me. So I was like so shocked. I was like, oh gosh, what happened? So I look at the time and said, okay, never mind. I will be going to, see doctor next day. So I went down through this polyclinic to see doctor, and they can't find anything. And they refer me to the A&E under this SGH, which is Singapore General Hospital. So I went there immediately. So the A&E doctor can't do anything. And then they have referred me to the Singapore National Eye Center 1 week after that. So on my first visit, the specialist can't diagnose anything because they said that they could not find any reason. So they followed that week on Monday. They will refer me to another another place for examination. So the senior specialist had diagnosed me these symptoms called central sinus retinopathy. These symptoms, which is in short we call it CSR. Yes. So at first they were so shocked that you're such a young lady. Why do you have this kind of symptom? Then I said, I'm not too sure actually. And I was so worried about my eyes.
Mm.
So
You want me to lock
I
on
was so scared.
cream?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, this is the X-ray that they show it to me. Okay, this is the top one is the first beginning that I have, and the bottom one is the last checkup they told me before and after. We call it.
The gap is
Yeah.
nice.
So
Wow.
so at first they tell me saying that it's a fluid water bag. You call it as a layman term. But after that they tell me saying that actually this fluid, right, it's called it jelly O or something.
Mm.
So they were so shocked that normally this kind of symptom is like more on elderly
Mm.
side. And they never expected I'm the one who also get it also. And they say that my left eye is weak as the oldies elderly folks, you see. So I
Right.
was like, is there any medicine or any treatment for me to recover? They said that no, no. There is no treatment for them to do it and all that. I said, oh,
So you
okay.
decided to
So
embark on your own journey of recovery.
yeah,
You took lutein and
yes.
astaxanthin, is that right? Very good. Okay, and then you started seeing
Yes, I
improvement.
take lutein and
Wonderful.
zeaxanthin. Yes, because yes, and actually the specialist has told me saying that do not take any supplement or any medication because
You-
there's nothing to cure. I said, okay, but but when I on the way home, I just suddenly recall that one of the senior Sarah Ling has told me before saying that lutein and astaxanthin is the most powerful combination for eye vision care. So I don't think too much. I just quickly immediate order and then I go to the HQ and take my order and then I start on that day immediately.
That's
So
amazing. This from June to November. What a wonderful
uh
story. Shall I move on to
yes,
the next slide? Because I think you've
yes,
got more. Oh, yeah,
yes.
great.
So this is the on the way recovering stage.
Wonderful.
Yeah, this is the third month, which is the third visit that I went. They said that the specialist was so shocked, saying that, "What you do? How come your, the eye bag, the water bag is getting smaller and smaller? What do you do?" And my yellow tinted view and the floater is getting lighter and lighter. I
Wonderful.
was so alive. I was so happy. My
Amazing.
goodness. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your amazing
Yeah.
story, Cindy, and just
Mm,
being so selfless in your sharing. And I realized you
no
just
problem.
took lutein and astaxanthin. You didn't take OPC?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Normal routine, the DK kids.
okay, good, good. That
Yeah.
explains
Can
it.
I just ask, do you also take omega 3s?
Omega 3, yes, I do.
Okay,
And
good.
were you taking OPCs at the time that the
Twice a
thing
day.
happened?
Actually, I have like that time. Yeah,
You
I
were?
keep
So
taking
you
until
were.
today.
No,
Okay.
but I
Yeah,
mean,
until now. Yeah.
before that, had you
Before
been
that.
taking,
Oh.
before that, had you been taking OPC?
Yes, I do.
You
The
had to.
basic one.
How many?
Yeah, without the
Oh,
fish
that,
oil.
oh, just the one cap in the daily essentials.
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
So after this incident, I was like, must take care. I felt that important to take care of my eyes.
that's right.
So I take
Yes,
all this.
absolutely.
My goodness. Okay, thank you so
What
much.
a great testimonial. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you for your
Yep.
generosity. Appreciate that.
Mm,
So let's
correct.
move on to
No
our next
problem. This is a good
thing.
one.
And I'm going to just conclude this morning's segment with our TCM practitioner from, oh dear, there's a wrong spelling, a practitioner there from Sydney, Australia. So Lynn, I know you can't be online, so I'm going to share your story. I hope I'll do you justice, Lynn. This is a wonderful young man I have in Sydney, Australia. He talks about hay fever. Now I know this cartoon here looks really funny, but it is no funny matter when you've got hay fever. I remember during my undergraduate days, studying in Australia, the first thing I reach out every morning is this puff on my nose before I go to class. And because the hay fever can be so bad, right? And so Lynn was actually, he wasn't targeting his hay fever. He was actually told by somebody to take OPC because it has helped the particular person's mom in fibromyalgia, and that's terrible, right? And degenerative as well. So Lynn decided to give OPC a try. And when he did that, he found his stamina improving, and he's able to recover very quickly with his physical trainings. But during that time, what impressed him the most was that he realized that when hay fever season started coming on, it became significantly reduced, and he went through the entire season with not many symptoms of that. And whenever he felt bad, all he needed to do was just pump up on his OPC, and everything will be back to normal. So he has done that for the past 7 years, and that has been his amazing journey with hay fever. And I know in Australia, your spring season is just coming up in a couple of weeks, and that's the season I love in Australia as well. I'm so missing going to Australia, but yes, so hay fever comes along with all the pollen and beautiful spring flowers. Hay fever is a wonderful time to introduce OPC to your friends. Not only did it help him in his hay fever, but his eyesight too was so improved that he doesn't have to wear glasses anymore or contact lenses. Amazing, amazing. That's another wonderful story. I look forward to a time when I can throw off my glasses. But anyway, yeah, it worked. It works in different areas for different ones of us, and so Lynn is very fortunate that he doesn't have to wear glasses now. So he says that he will definitely continue using OPC. When I say OPC, it's not OPC alone, all right? He has combined it with other supplements, I'm sure, being a TCM practitioner. And I'm sure, Lynn, now with your experience, you're able to, dispense our products to your patients who definitely need some of our amazing products. Thank you, Lynn, for sharing that with us, even though you can't be here in person. There's another person as well. I have another leader from Melbourne, Huey, and
Hey,
his wife, Chelsea.
Leanne, for just one sec before we go on to the next, I just want to comment so that everybody understands the real reason why OPC is so useful for allergies, which we also call in medical terms allergic rhinitis, and there are clinical trials there with pycnogenol. The reason it works is because when we bump into an antigen, or what we would call an allergen, something that our body doesn't agree with and that we react to, our body produces histamine from the mast cells throughout our body. Well, OPCs, pycnogenol specifically, but others as well, temporarily suppress mast cells from releasing histamine. So we don't need antihistamines and other agents to control those symptoms. And they don't only work for those kinds of antigens, not just the pollens and grasses and hanging pods. They work for any other environmental antigen, dust mites and molds, pet hair and dander. So in other words, it's not just the grasses, which is why we use it all year round to make sure that we keep allergies at bay. What they don't work on is food allergies. So there, it's kind of worthless.
Okay, food is something we can control. It's what we put into our mouth, right? So, but
Right.
the air, the environment around us, and the changing of the seasons is not something we can reverse. So we need to be fortified with OPC and the supplements throughout the year. And thanks for the scientific explanation on why it will significantly help in our allergies. Thank you for that, Sharon. That actually concludes the first segment of our testimonial sharing. There will be more at the end of Sharon's presentation at the end. Some wonderful testimonials coming up. And now it's time for a little a bathroom break for 10 minutes. And so we'll see everybody back again at 11:10. Is that right, Sharon?
That's correct.
So we'll see everybody back here again in 10 minutes.